everybody, welcome along to episode 93 of Percussion Discussion. Hope you're all well out there and enjoying our conversations. As usual, I'm going to ask you to please check out our social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course our world famous YouTube channel, where you can find all of our conversations, past and present. If you wouldn't mind subscribing, it only takes a second and it really helps us get the word out there, so appreciate that. If you'd rather listen on the go, then all of our conversations are available in podcast form. These are free to download from all of your favorite podcast providers. So if that's your thing, you know exactly what to do. And again, if you find yourself with a couple of seconds spare, please leave us a very short review. It all helps. On to today's guest, a wonderful, wonderful drummer from Manchester. He's done all sorts of different session work over the last few years. But for the last 9 years, he's found himself playing drums for I think, one of the finest singer-songwriters that we've ever had in the UK. A former singer with the beautiful South, the wonderful Paul Heaton and Jacqui Abbott. What a great, great gig. It gives me great pleasure to welcome the fantastic Mr. Pete Marshall. Pete, thanks so much for doing this.
No problem, man.
It's good to see you, mate. And it's I know it's kind of festival season, so thanks for squeezing me in.
No problem at all. No problem at all.
Oh, it's appreciated. And before we get into it, it's bizarre, but a few weeks ago it was now, I think, 2 people in 2 days said, do you know what? You want to get Pete Marshall on? And I was like, yeah, that's good. And those people were Math Priest from Dodgy. So thanks, Math.
Top Great drummer. Good lad.
Yes, indeed. And a gentleman I know you know, and I know very well as well, Richard Charles.
Yeah.
How did you know Richard Charles? That's the question.
Yeah. So I started drumming at high school.
Yeah.
Because I played violin in the school orchestra, and we had the big school concert, and the drummer didn't show.
Okay.
So the conductor, like, just before he went on, grabbed me and she was like, Pete, your reading's good, isn't it? And I was like, yeah, it's all right. She went, great. You need to play tambourine on this because this person hadn't turned up. So I played tambourine and read this part. And then she was like, you like that, didn't you? She was like, will you do it again next week? I went, yeah, all right then. But I felt a bit silly with the tambourine, I'll be honest. So I got all the drums out and set them up all the wrong way around. Didn't have a clue what I was doing. And I thought, if I'm going to be at the back, I want all the drums. I want to have a go. And she went, look, if you like it, you can have some lessons. So I was like, go on then, why not? And it was a friend of mine, Johnny Price, a great drummer who was teaching at the time. So I must have had about a year at school with him, sort of learning basics, getting myself into a band with all my schoolmates, covers band, having a laugh. And then Johnny, he left to go on tour. He went, so he left teaching, and that's when Richard Charles came in. So it was right, probably I had him for about 6 months.
He's a good guy, Richard.
He's a great guy. And then and we've stayed in touch ever since. And he's been to loads of shows, which is really nice. It's nice that we keep that connection. Yeah.
Did you? Because I know he's, as well as being a good kit player, he does a lot of the classical percussion as well. Did you do classical stuff, or was it purely kit?
So it's funny. The classical stuff I did was probably on violin mainly.
Yeah.
But then through that, I went back to teach at the orchestra that I was in. Well, coach, if you will. So we'd sit at the back of the set of violins and tell them to, stop staring into space. All the violins up. Yeah, all the stuff that I did. And then the percussion teacher we had in the orchestra left, and they were like, there's a vacancy, we need someone to fill it. And I went, I'll do that. So I moved to orchestra there because when I'd done a bit at school, I'd touched on orchestra percussion. So I wouldn't I'm not a professional percussionist at all, but I can read a bit. So I've done a bit of tuned and a bit. So I've done a little bit. Played in a pit show, played an amateur dramatics thing. I've done bits.
Yeah, it's there if you need it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Somewhere. Getting rustier by the year.
But look, so thanks to Matt and Richard for the recommendation. I'm glad they did that. And
no problem.
Both great guys. So I guess that's kind of covered the first bit. Where did drumming begin for you? That was it, I guess.
Done.
Was there no interest in drums before then at all, or was there ever a kind of
Do you know what's pretty funny about my journey with music is I was brought up in a very musical family. My dad was a cellist for a job, and he sort of quit the profession and became a teacher when he had kids because of the irregularity of it, you know, the unsociable hours. Yeah. So he became a lower strings teacher in the north of Manchester, and my mum was a piano teacher. So there was just music in the house constantly, and it was always assumed that I was going to be a musician. Everyone's were like, "Oh yeah, you're that musical kid because you're in that family." And I played a bit of piano and played violin, and progressed quite easily, but didn't put a lot of time into it. And I think the more that everyone assumed I was going to be a musician, not my parents, I must say, they were like, the door's open, have a go if you want. But the last thing they ever did was push, because they had to teach the children of pushy parents. And they were just like, you got to find your own way. They really didn't push. So it got to like about 14, and I was probably more interested in like other things, girls. And then I got really into cars. I had a load of friends I didn't go to an art school or anything. I just went to a comprehensive, and it was pretty rough. And if you couldn't kick a football, which I can't, and you didn't know about cars, it was not a place to be. It wasn't a good thing that I used to walk through this council estate with my violin case and you got your head stoved in, really. It wasn't great. I started leaving the violin at school after that. Yeah. And then that was another thing that put me off music. There wasn't a lot of pop music in the house. Right. And again, my parents, they weren't anti-pop music at all. That wasn't the world they worked in, and that wasn't the music they listened to. You know, my dad played in orchestras, he'd gig on a weekend in orchestras or string quartets, and that was kind of his thing. So there wasn't loads of pop stuff. And then, so my immediate friends were, when I was sort of early teens, they were football or cars, and I was cars. That was it. So I got really into the cars thing and messing about with cars, and I wanted to be a mechanic. So quite funnily enough, I went to do my work experience as a mechanic at the local car garage. It was a Lada dealer, if you remember those Russian cars.
Oh yeah. Lots to do there.
Yeah. So my dad had like Ladas, and that was another reason that we got laughed at. And then when I was there was this guy who was put in charge of training me. He was just like, he was asking what my family did and that, and he says, "You don't want to buy some drums, do you?" So this all aligned at the time when I'd started these lessons, and I was like, yeah. Because I couldn't afford drums at the music shop, and I couldn't afford the drums that were in loot. And this guy we just had stuff for sale in his house. I think it was pretty dodgy. Yeah. And I bought this pretty faded Premier Olympic kit. And the first band I were in, jokes, it's like salmon pink on the top and bright red underneath. So it had been in someone's window. It was totally trashed, but I loved it to bits. Like, I properly loved it. So it was at that point that I was going to say left the cars behind, but in lockdown, all I've been doing is restoring cars. I've just started restoring a Lada, just like the one my dad had. I've been teaching myself to weld. That's what I've been doing. So that's another side story. But it was around that time I hung around with different friends, and they were all into bands, and the idea of being in a band. And this was the mid-90s. So guitar bands, you know, indie music, the Manchester scene, it was a big scene to be part of. Every guitar shop was full of people trying to play Wonderwall, or, you know, all the classic guitar things. Everyone wanted to play an instrument. So it helped. I think that's what sort of dragged me in. And all of a sudden I got to the point where I thought, maybe I don't want to be a mechanic. And then I started in an originals band with a friend of mine. Now, rather nice is that the guy who plays bass, Paul Heaton Jacqui, who I play with most of the time now.
Cool.
He's my childhood friend who I was in a band with. So I get to work with him all the time. So you never know who you're going to meet. I was 15 when I met him.
Wow. That's really cool.
Well, when there was a vacancy for someone in the band, I was like, I know someone, and rang up my old mate and got him in. So it's dead nice that it's sort of come full circle. Yeah. So I'd say then drums very, very quick. It seemed to make sense to me from that school concert onwards. It very quickly made sense. So I had the theory knowledge from playing piano and from playing the violin and the reading. And then the coordination, you know, I was clumsy like everyone, but I just got really into it. And then obviously the lessons were great from the people that we said. But then I basically put some drums in an old mill that was near our house, and there was a rehearsal room. And I just used to lock myself in there and sort of found my own way. So I started with some lessons. But having come from a house full of music lessons, I didn't really want that. I just wanted to go and find my own thing. So I started discovering music and copying it. That's you know, that was it. So it was funny. I started with some lessons, and then I definitely went for playing by ear, really, and just teaching me the stuff that really interested me. And then when I formed bands with friends, just learning the repertoire that we wanted to do as a band before we wrote songs. You know,
you've had both sides of the education, which I think is a really good thing, isn't it? You know, you've learned. You know, you can read. You know, you can do this, that, and the other. But you know, you can just do your own thing as well. I think it's quite important to have both sides of it.
Definitely. And like, I would never discourage people, because I've done little bits of teaching as well along the way, and I'd never discourage people from reading. But I'll find a lot of people who played in like bands for years, and they might not play drums, might play guitar or bass or keys, and they'll say, I really wish I'd learned how to read music. But I always say to them, it's like saying that you want to learn to speak French and you've got no plans to visit France. That if you're not going to use it, it's kind of pointless. But if you are a kid learning, it will throw more things open. Like, so what if a pop band isn't for you and you want to go in the West End, or if you want to play in an orchestra, or if you want to teach? I'd never tell someone not to do it. I don't read anymore. But then, like, on, you know, I must have done 7, I think I'm on album 7 with Paul, probably 6 that I worked on with Jacqui and Paul. And then when we've had strings on them for some parts, I've written the parts, which is great because I can write. For other parts, it just means that I can be around the studio to translate from other band members who can't read. I can read the score and help alter bits that aren't what someone wants, or explain an idea. I can kind of sit on the fence really between the readers and the non-readers.
That must be a real joy for Paul and Jacqui. There's no the guy at the back on the kit can arrange these parts. It's pretty unusual, isn't it? Let's be honest.
It is, and I wouldn't take credit for all the arrangements at all. And like Paul's amazing at just hearing arrangement in his head, but I can translate that. Also, our keyboard player is great, Stephen Large, we've worked with. He's done lots of arrangements, and we've had some other great arrangers that have come in as well. So we've all done it. But it more means that whoever's done that part or realised it, I can kind of help facilitate it and help, just make sure that we get the part that works for everyone, and just acts as a bit of a go-between, really, if I need to. And if I want to write something, I can write it as well. So it is, I guess it is, I've got quite an odd set of skills that way, I guess. Well, but it works in the bands. We've all got our little roles. We've all got the things that we do, and that's kind of mine.
Yeah. I mean, tell me, I think I'm very envious of your gig with Paul and Jacqui. For in my mind, I think Paul is one of the most gifted songwriters that the UK has ever had. I would wholeheartedly agree. Lyricist too, just incredible, you know.
So it's funny because when Paul was topping the charts the first time round, well, with House Martins, I was 5 or 6, so I missed all that completely. And then when he was and then obviously the Beautiful South, I had quite a lot of success late 80s, early 90s, and then just carried on through the 90s. And it seemed to get even bigger towards the end of the 90s. And I remember Perfect 10 being on everywhere when I was about 17, and it not being my thing. I had long time, I listened to Metallica, and I was learning double kick. So it was the total opposite of what I was into at that point. The Beautiful South was just not for me at that point. But as I sort of got older and then started doing more session playing, I ended up working with singer-songwriters. And found success with a singer-songwriter from North Manchester called Liam Frost.
Great.
For whom I played violin and mandolin for, and then swapped and played drums for. So I did 2 albums with him. And that's kind of the point where I had to give up the day job, because we had some tours in that I had an office job. And I'd spent on holidays. So all of a sudden we were on tour and stuff, and I was like, I'm going to have to jack that in. And I'll always loved Liam's lyrics. And to that point, maybe a musical snob, but it was about the sound of music or drum beats, or it was definitely the music. And in some place, as a teenager, the complexity of it. As I developed, my taste changed, and then working with Liam really got me into lyrics. So then when I did rediscover Paul, I met him, we were introduced by a mutual friend, and just read his lyrics. All of a sudden it flipped how I felt about that band, and how listening back now, and I agree with what you said. I think he's definitely probably one of Britain's best writers, really. And it's funny how he's not gone unnoticed, because those songs are really well known, but in another way he has slipped, which I'm always surprised with in terms of awards. And he just got that Ivor Novello, which was his first proper recognised award for writing and his contribution to music, which I find pretty mad for someone who's had so many top tens.
It's ridiculous. I mean, I cite as my two musical genius songwriters, Nick Kershaw and Paul Heaton. My money. I think they're both geniuses at what they do. And, you've got the most incredible back catalogue of beautiful pop songs to choose from. It's
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, to land a gig, the thing that I like is, half of it's like a covers gig, because I wasn't in the Beautiful South and I wasn't in the House Martins. So I certainly don't tell people that I was. But then we've recorded, like I said, it must be. I recorded a solo album with Paul first, and then we did a concept sort of album, which was the Manchester International Festival approached Paul to write something. So he wrote a piece called The Eighth, which was about the 7 deadly sins, and it was kind of a concept piece, had a narrator, and we had guest singers. One of those guest singers was Jacqui Abbott, which is how we rekindled that connection after she'd left the Beautiful South. At that point, it would have been 10 years they hadn't worked together. And then obviously we've had the success with all the Jacqui and Paul albums, and we've had many singles that we're fortunate have done really well at radio. And when we play them at a gig, we don't get that awkward silence that some bands get when they play a new song.
Yeah, sure.
So it feels like the audience are holding them in the same at the same level as the old stuff, and they're enjoying them. And certainly some of the singles are sticking out, and they're on a set list for every gig now, along with all the other ones. So I'm in a very fortunate position to play with someone like Paul and to play with Jacqui. It's amazing.
You've got literally a wealth of riches to choose from. There's just, every song could be a hit, couldn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah. He's just got such an ear for what makes a hit. It's, it's pretty crazy. And he can it always sounds fresh and new. And he just doesn't, he said, he never gets writer's block. He said you wouldn't ask a plumber if a plumber got plumber's block. They can plumb every day. He said, I'm a songwriter, so I'll write a song every day. And he doodles and writes lyrics all the time. Sure. You can see his brain working, and it's amazing. He's great.
Wow, great gig. And let's be honest, you're doing some stellar gigs. I think you've done Glastonbury, the Isle of Wight, and there's probably more that I've missed, but some big shows, and
yeah, they are getting big. We've got 2 big shows coming up, one in St Helens and one in Doncaster, with the Proclaimers, which will be great.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and the Lathams or Lathams, sorry if I pronounced it wrong, lads. They're from, I want to say, Wigan. So they're going to be on with us as well. So they're stadium gigs, like the rugby stadium. So stadium show, we did 2 just before lockdown. We did 2 nights back to back, sold out, Stockport County's football ground, and they were great. I think 15,000 in a night. It was really, really great. And obviously Paul's got a lifelong obsession with football.
Yeah.
And to play, I'm a Rochdale fan, so to play that kind of league, that's what Paul likes. Paul will just turn up at any football ground anywhere in the world and just watch a football match, because that's what he's like. He just loves football. So he was very apt to play there. But rugby, I don't know if he's a big rugby head, but playing in St Helens, you see, big rugby town, and that's Jacqui's hometown. So that'll be, I don't know if she's done a gig in her hometown. So
Going to be
quite, yeah, it'll be amazing. I'm really excited about it.
Do you is there a different kind of approach to these big festivals from your point of view, or is it just more of the same?
In terms of me personally or the band?
Well, you personally, yeah.
I mean, you're aware of the pressure more. And I think I've thought of that through lockdown. And there'll be, the bigger the gig, there's probably less of them. So that they seem to count more. And everyone's just got their iPhone waiting for your mistake. That's how it feels for me. They're not. They're there because they're enjoying the gig. So there's definitely a pressure. Pressures are different when you've got kids and bills and real stuff, and this is what you do for a job. Always feels a bit more. In terms of, but I don't know, some of the more intimidating gigs could be if you're just playing to 100 people in the bar and everyone's tuned in, and you can see the bead of sweat on everyone's head. Because when you play a huge gig, you can't see people, and there's no real difference between 10,000 and 40 or 50,000 people when you sat behind the drums, because it's just a lot of people, and you can't. And I've not done like a Nebworth, but it'll be the same. You know, if it's bigger and bigger and bigger, you get to a point where you can't. It's just a lot of people, isn't it?
Yeah.
The show's quite old-fashioned in that we don't run any tech, we don't run click tracks, we don't run track. Everything that you hear on stage is somebody playing it. There's nothing hidden on a tape or a sample pad anywhere.
How refreshing is that to hear?
Yeah, it's quite old-fashioned. And so in terms of doing a big show, we're very the show is modest. We've got a backdrop.
Yeah.
We've got instruments. We've got ourselves. We all sing. Like, I like that about it, because that fits with Paul as well. I don't think it really matters what size. He gives his all when we play pubs to 100 people, and when we're playing Glastonbury or Isle of Wight, to tens of thousands, as does Jacqui, as does everyone in the band. We've got a great band.
I've watched some of the footage, and it's nice to see that some of the tempos on some of the beautiful South stuff, some of the older stuff, they get a bit of a kick up the arse and get shoved along a little bit, and it works, doesn't it, in a live setting like that? It really does.
It does. We talk about that quite a lot. Some of my friends will say, "Wow, that's a lot faster than the record." And I'm like, "Well, we messed about with it in rehearsal, and Paul wanted it to." Paul's still got that bit of he's got such an eclectic. I'm not going to pin him down on taste in music, because I don't know anybody who knows pre-recorded music like he does. His taste and his collection, just his knowledge of stuff. He's an encyclopedia of bands, songwriters, and many genres. I think he'd say he's not that into metal or really hard rock. And besides that, he's there. And he loved his punk stuff was around when he was so he's still got that punkier thing. So something that will come over really ballady in the production with the Beautiful South, he wants live to have a bit of edge and a bit of bark and a bit of bite. And it works,
when the click's gone, songs can breathe a bit as well, can't you? You can have a bit of movement, and nobody. I don't think anybody would slate a band for moving a bit. And I mean, how many famous recordings start?
All of them do. We still hark back, don't we? It's funny, when I've taught kids and stuff, they might be a generation or two younger than me now, and they'll probably still be into those classic tracks that I was into that are still classics. And none of them, the drummer was your click track. That's it. You played to the drummer. Yeah. And if you wanted to push in the chorus, it pushed in the middle eight, and that's kind of how it was.
It's kind of called making music, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is. That's exactly it. Yeah. So no, I love it. I love the interaction as well. If Paul's feeling he wants to move it on, or Jacqui, we just look at each other and we can do it.
And one of the best front men in the business as well. He just comes over so laid back, relaxed every time I've seen him. He's been brilliant, just superb.
Oh, I'm glad. Well, I'll pass that on. I think he is. It's nice. It just feels like it sort of feels like the bands are as in at school in a way. Just people, we go on stage or instruments and play tunes. Yeah. And it's certainly not. It's not rehearsed as a slick full production show, because I've done things. I have worked for some pop people where it has all been on click, and I might have had an SPDSX running track, and it might be a little bit more staged the whole show. And it's, you know, you can't miss. Like Paul, like if he's not feeling coming in at the start of the song, he'll let it go around the chords another time.
Yeah.
If he feels that he's breathing really nice before we go into a chorus, we'll just let it go for another time. And nobody's going, no, the trumpets are going to come in on the backing track. We missed it. There's none of that panic. You know, it's really nice.
I'd imagine there's lots of eye contact then between band members and just keeping an eye on where it's going. And yeah,
that's exactly what we do. We just all feel it out. You know, we don't even have in ears. We're really dated, so it's all on wedges. So it's really real. It's just the same as the rehearsal room.
Yeah.
You know, whereas a lot of bands, you know, it's quite a change when they're going out on tour. And monitors are kind of shut off from the audience, maybe, and everything's programmed. Even the lights could be programmed on a time code to the click, and yeah, it's different every time. And if he wants to tell a joke, and if he wants to ad lib, or if Jacqui does, we'll just go with it. But I won't. I can't. You know, it's not my job.
No.
What about maybe I'll just start doing a big solo. I'd never do that. It's not my style.
No, I think the idea of having to do a drum solo in front of people, for me personally, is just horrific, and I can't imagine it ever happening. I'll be honest, never, ever, ever. But there we are. That's just me.
Yeah, I'm the same. I don't really like this. Actually, the first time I sort of got into all that and watching the VHS videos of all the greats.
Yeah.
Your first time, you just mesmerize. How can that be possible? And then you kind of realize what it is that you want to do. And for me, I like music more than I like drums. I like drums, and I'm into drums.
Sure.
And I got more nerdy about equipment and drums and recording. As I got a recording set up at home and did my own albums, and when I suddenly got tagged a session player, because I'm not in a band, you know, I mean, I've been with Paul 13 years now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I am, but I'm not a band member, like if it was in the Beautiful South or if it was in any band that you can think of. But when you got that tag, it was like, right, I better start learning about gear now. If people are going to pay me to show up, better make sure I know about it. And if we're not getting the right thing in the studio or live, I've got a knowledge that I can get to where we need to get.
Sure. I mean, talking of equipment, you're with British Drum Company, and it's no secret, I'm not affiliated in any way, but I love those drums, and I think Keith and Mel and all the guys there run an incredible ship, if you like. It's just amazing. So how long have you been with BDC, Pete?
2017, I want to say.
Good while.
With the same kit. So I went to the Manchester Drum Show.
Yeah.
And I was chatting to them there, and they were like, "Oh, we've got an open day. You should come down." And I went to the factory and had a tour. And I've known Keith for a long time, since he did KD drums, because I have friends who have those kits. And I know some of the other guys that work at the factory as well. And I love the fact that it's literally a few miles from my house, you know, so I can be at the factory in sort of 10 minutes, 15 minutes, which is really cool. And I was semi-endorsed by CNC drums, so I had a CNC kit for a while from America. And they sort of said to me, they joked at the drum show, they were like, "Why are you playing an American kit if you were the massive British artist?" And I was like, "I don't know, you tell me." And I've never really been endorsed, I'll be honest, because a lot of the stuff I'd done, maybe if you're not a featured drummer or musician, it slipped under the radar because I'm not in a big band.
Yeah.
So I'd never really been touted by any companies. I had the same kit for many years. I had my first kit for many years. I wasn't a big gear head at all. And then I changed kits a few times. But I'd ordered the CNC, and to be credit, it was nice, but it wasn't blowing me away. And it was an expensive kit. It wasn't totally blowing me away. And they said, "You should try one of ours." So at the end of this open day, they were like, "Look, you know, we've got a waiting list, but this one here, we've made this for the show and it hasn't got a home at the moment. Why don't you take it and just have a go on it and just see what you think of it, and see if it works for you." So I took it, and then that evening we got a phone call to be on Jules Holland, which I've always wanted to do, which has been, you know, on my bucket list. So I rang up the guys at British Drum Company and said, do you want me to take that kit on, or should I take my kit? And they said, you should take our kit. And I'm glad I did. I'd had a day messing about with it, and genuinely I was blown away with it, how easy it was to sort of tune, and the sound and the way it makes you feel. Like, so playing violin, you're very connected to the instrument, you feel it.
Yeah.
And drums are not like that to me. Drums are, you're hitting them. But it's really, I find it interesting that there's certain kits that you get really excited playing, and they can feel really creative and make you want to do loads of stuff. And there's other kits that fight you, or you just don't feel comfortable with. It's really weird, because it isn't that tactileness that I feel on the violin, I don't feel in the drums. But I've got an old kit that I've had for years that I love, and I feel like it's an old pair of shoes, and feel very comfortable and really excited whenever I play it. And that BDC kit is the same. So I always used to record on my old pair of shoes. I've got an old Ludwig that I've had. Oh, nice. I bought it before it was vintage. It was just secondhand when I got it. The word vintage wasn't being branded around.
Sure.
And I love it. And I genuinely sort of didn't know what I bought. I bought it just because it looked cool, and it was cheap, I'll be honest. And it wasn't collectible back then at all. And then loads of people were pecking me head to, people have tried to buy it in all sorts. And whenever I've gone in the studio with it, people have commented, and it just sounds, it really delivers. It sounds really great. That said, since I got the BDC, and I kind of got it in my head that if I was going to play on an album, that I needed to have my kit with me, or I'd just be rubbish and the album would be rubbish. So I sort of got a bit of a, I don't know, I played a mind game on myself. Yeah. But for this, as the first album that I had with the BDC kit, I thought, I've already done a few Paul and Jacqui albums. Maybe I need to change something, and maybe I should try that kit because I'm really enjoying it. And it was great. So the last 3 albums I've made on that.
Yeah.
I still, the other one still comes out, and I'll practice with it at home. If I'm doing sessions, it's useful to have. But genuinely, that kit gets used for everything.
Yeah.
It's my everything kit. I still play in pubs and bars with my friends. I'll drag it out, and then it goes off in a truck in its flight cases and meets me on a stage in front of thousands of people. And it's great. I don't envisage really there's nothing I really want extra. So yeah. Might have it a long time. Be no good for shops. I wouldn't keep them going, would I? Just like, I'll have that. Just that one will do, please. Maybe I'll change the colour one day. But it's great. I can't fault it. It's really musical.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what I say, that I like music more than I like drums, and it fits in the music great. It's wicked. And it's made here, which I love.
Well, that's big part of it for me. And I find they're the kind of drums you can kind of just sink into rather than play off them. You kind of, I don't know. That's an organic sort of thing. I don't know. Maybe it's just my own mind.
It was the closest to my old Ludwig. And that's the old Ludwig for me is like, it is just, it doesn't play you play it, and it helps you play it,
Yeah, absolutely.
Some kits, I don't know, I've not found it the same. It sounds a bit crazy, but yeah, no, I love it. And yeah, I love it. Me BDC Lounge. There's the little there's the plug.
Absolutely. I have the same
Kensington.
Same one behind me.
Brown. Is yours dark brown as well?
Mine is I can't remember it's like a something raven glass it's called.
Oh, your raven glass. Very nice.
Raven glass.
Very nice. Petrol or diesel? Which one is it?
Unleaded.
It's the unleaded one, yeah. I went for the auto. It's a 7-speed DSG. It's great. I love it. No, I love it. I do. I love my drum kit.
And as you say, the fact that it's local as well is just even better, isn't it? Made up the road, and if there's a problem, just ring them up and get it sorted. And awesome.
Yeah. Good talk about my cymbals as well, because they're imported by a local guy, Alex, as well. I play a media cymbals.
Oh, lovely. Yes, indeed.
I've always played I always played Zildjians, because when I was a kid, all my idols played Zildjians. That was the reason. It was as simple as that. And the school kit had one Zildjian cymbal, which was like, that was the one,
Yeah.
And the orchestra that I taught at, they had some old A Zildjians. So I played them, and I always liked them. And they got some A customs. And again, they were expensive, and I bought them one at a time. So you just end up with one set of cymbals, and that's your job in cymbals. And a friend put me in touch with Alex at Media and said, you should try these cymbals out. And I dismissed it at first. I was like, do you know what? I'm all right with the ones I've got. And then he said, well, how about I was playing at the Salford Lowry Theatre, and he said, how about, I live near there. He said, how about I just drop you a couple of sets off and you just try them at sound check. And if you don't like them, don't worry about it. He said, if you want to talk about it after, we will. Now, my sound engineer, our front of house engineer is amazing, Sean Kelly, and he's a drummer. He's a fantastic drummer.
Okay.
He'll get very upset when they're telling you that because he doesn't really play anymore. But, I think he's really great. Yeah. And it's great to have a great job doing your sound. Sure. It's just brilliant. And he simply said, those cymbals make my life a lot easier. You should have those.
Right.
Because that's what I'm looking for. It's like he's got a mixer thing, not me. So, and we all sing in the band. So having 5 vocal mics open on stage and cymbals going down every one of them.
Or bleed, yeah.
Yeah, there is. So for him to sort of mix it, he was just like, those cymbals work better for me. So then I sort of spent a bit of time with Alex finding the set that were right for me and that played the music. Again, Bipple. I got them before the BDC and I've not changed them.
Well, that says a lot, doesn't it? And I've heard them at various drum shows. I've got lots of friends who were with them, and I've been knocked out every time I've heard them, I'll be honest.
They're really, really great. The only thing I found confusing is the range is dead massive, so it makes you dead confused with you. But you just pick with your ears, and I find those. I play classics. If people want to know how to get that sound, they're on the albums. Yeah. And if you've heard the single anywhere, then that's what it is. It's as simple as that. So they're great. I even got I did get 2 sets, so I could have a set for going out playing in bars with my mates. So, and they're great. I love it. Yeah, really good.
So life is good.
Yeah, life is good. I'm lucky. I'm busy being a dad. I'm busy playing gigs in the band that I love. And we just finished a new album as well, which is good. Yeah. We made a new album just sort of coming out of lockdown. Really, we started as soon as things could move again. Yeah. So that's hopefully going to come out in autumn.
Brilliant. Look forward to it.
That's the plan. So yeah, it's dead exciting.
You mentioned one thing earlier on. You mentioned Jools Holland.
Yeah.
What's that like as an experience?
It's weird. See, I've watched Jools Holland quite religiously, those shows, and I've always been. You've got to have your thing, Top of the Pops has gone. For the generation up, it was being on Top of the Pops. And I wanted to be on Top of the Pops, but really, as a time I was really getting involved with the band, it was fizzling out. So kind of missed that boat. And Jools Holland's that big show with every band you've liked and every legend's been on,
of course,
hasn't it? So it's amazing. So yeah, it happened it was quite short notice. I think we had a week to know that we were going on.
Yeah.
So it was all happened in a bit of a blur, really. And of course, like any TV to smash the dreams, it's not like it looks on the TV show. It's a lot of waiting around. And then when you play your set, you can hear yourself. But then when the other bands are playing, you can't hear them because the feed's going to the telly.
Of course. Oh, it's weird.
So it's weird. Like it was, and they've got to get the shots right. So they're trying to make, obviously the music's live on there. They won't have people miming on there.
Yeah.
So they're trying to make sure that the band don't make a mess. They're trying to make sure there's not a technical error. Because I always thought that you mimed on TV because you couldn't play. And it was like, but it was all down to the cost of the production. You're minimizing risks all the time, aren't you? That if people mimed on the telly, that's one thing that wouldn't go down, hopefully. Although the track did famously used to mess up on Top of the Pops or whatever program they did.
Martha's Harbour, All About Eve. Remember that one?
Yeah. Perfect. But to have a live music show, there's just a lot. There's a lot to be done. There's lots of cables to plug in. There's lots of people running around. There's lots of people getting every bit. And if you're doing the lighting, that's got to be right. And if you're doing the sound, that's got to be right. So yeah, it was a lot of running around, and then it was over. And then we were back in the band going home, and I was like, oh, have we just done it? Is that it? There was no big rap. There was no big party because everyone else, everyone that was on the show was off doing their own tours or whatever else. People are fitting it into their schedule.
Yeah. That's bizarre. So it's the dream is shattered.
I've shattered the dream, but it was brilliant. Jules came over and said hello. He's a fan of Paul and Jacqui's writing and put, and of their history. He's had them on in the past,
Sure.
So you could see that they enjoyed catching up. But there was no big party. We were out doing the gig, not that night, but the next day. So we literally we had to be out of there.
Normal.
So it was all a bit squashed. I'd like to go back and do it again, but have more time.
Do you mentioned something else earlier, right? Nothing to do with drums, but it's just jogged a memory and it's made me smile. You mentioned Loot. I'd forgotten all about Loot's existence.
Loot magazine. That's where you had to buy your gear, wasn't it? Because there was no eBay.
I used to buy that religiously. It was yellow, wasn't it? Was it yellow?
It was. £1.50. Massive. If you had car parts, cars, or musical instruments, it was the place. Yeah. But you think how it's changed with like Marketplace on Facebook or
Crazy.
eBay was the big one. But what makes me sad about, it's great that anyone can sell stuff and anyone can buy stuff and you can get stuff. But what I used to love was going into a music shop that smelled of damp electrics. They always smell like a damp cellar. And when you've left a guitar amp or a Hammond organ on, it was that really distinct smell. And there'd be loads of rubbish equipment that you didn't want to buy. And there'd be a Black Beauty, Ludwig, hidden somewhere, or that cymbal, or that instrument that you really wanted. And now, there's great music shops everywhere, but they tend to be like department stores competing with online.
Yeah.
And rows and rows of electric drum kits and rows of brand new drum kits. It's not kind of the same excitement.
No.
And I used to love it when I did I've not done loads of playing in the States, but I was out in the States, the band, and going into a music shop there when all that gear that we dream of having, there was one shop that I just randomly went in that was tucked away, not in a busy area, and it just had about 30 vintage, what we would see as vintage American kits in, just hanging around there. And it was amazing. I was like, I wonder how many of these I can get on the airplane. It was so good. I miss those days. I do.
Oh, mate. Hey, look, you brought back a lot of memories for me tonight, Pete. So thanks for that. I appreciate it.
No worries at all.
It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and I really appreciate you giving your time up so generously.
No worries at all. It's good to talk to you too.
Absolutely, yeah. So hopefully we can catch up and do it in person at some point or other. That would be nice. And,
yeah. Well, hopefully we'll be playing in a bar near you.
Hopefully so.
They started doing loads of gigs in Rill, just down the road, haven't they? They're revitalising Rill, aren't they? I've got a few friends that are playing Rill.
Well, James were there last weekend. Lightning Seeds. So there's all sorts of happening.
There is. Rill's the place to be once more.
Oh, look, mate, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, and hopefully I'll see you soon. Take care.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Pete.
See you soon.
Take care, mate.
Bye.
Bye.